Well, thank you for staying with us. Now, he's been dubbed Africa's liberation giant. Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Zambia's founding president, who led the country for 27 years, leaves such a rich legacy. Now, Zambian authorities have declared 21 days of mourning for the liberation hero. And we understand President Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa also declaring 10 days of mourning. But Kaunda, of course, ruled the Southern African nation from 1964 when it gained independence from Britain until 1991. But to talk more about his life and legacy, we have the honor right now of speaking to one of his sons, Mr. Kaweche Kaunda. Mr. Kaunda, thank you for your time. And under these circumstances, we'd like to send our condolences to you and your family. Thank you so much for speaking to us. As we begin our conversation, I kept asking Gareth, my colleague, and just wondering who Dr. Kenneth Kaunda was like at home as a father. We know him as this giant, this liberation, president, this leader, this world leader. But for you, I'm sure he had a different role as well of being a father. What was he like?
At home, it was just, well, first of all, good morning. And just to say thank you to all the people that have been sending messages from all over the world. Just want to say that we really appreciate the messages. They're comforting, and we're comforted by the love that is shown for our father. Now, coming back to your statement and your question, well, at home, he was just dad. He was an ordinary person. We had to go elsewhere to realize that other people didn't see him the way we saw him. He was just dad. There's no more I can say about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And while we were, of course, promoting this conversation and this interview, we played a clip of when he came to speak at the late Nelson Mandela's funeral service. And he must have been a humorous dad at that, because he actually ran to the podium to try and show the world that, listen, I may be an old man, but I'm a very energetic old man. Was he the kind of dad who would, show humor, play around and mess around with you as his children?
We tried for a long time to stop him from doing that, because we always fearful that he might have a fall.
Oh.
But he insisted, just the age that eventually caught up with him and he stopped doing it. But that's what he loved to do.
And with that being said, I just wonder, he led the Zambian, nation from 1964 all the way to 1991. But I wonder, Mr. Kaunda, if he really ever rested from the politics of the continent, if he really ever retired from actively being involved and engaging with issues around the continent.
In terms of him being actively involved, yes, we managed to cushion him from that. But if he had his way, he would have been involved to his last breath. That was in his blood. There's no way he was going to be totally and absolutely detached from what was going on, especially on the continent.
Yeah.
But because it stressed him so much, and with age, we were advised that, look, it's not good for him to really be stressing about something. So we tried to cushion him from a lot of these things. And it was a bit surprising, because the people who actually still at his age wanted to come and present their problems to him. And we really have to explain, look, he's an old man now. He's just another old man, just an ordinary old man. But people didn't see him that way. They still thought that they'd come to him and put these things before him, and he would give his counsel for whatever the issues were. But we tried to cushion him from all those things.
Yeah. And you speak about how he was still concerned about issues around the continent. What particularly concerned him? What were some of those issues, which I'm sure there are many in the continent, but what were some of those that really did still concern him?
I think where he was most concerned, and what used to upset him, was the lack of resolve on some of the things that could simply be resolved just by people putting in an effort to deal with some of these things. Things that were beyond anybody's control. He understood very well that one had found a different way of dealing with things. But if it's something that just requires somebody's resolve, those are things that really, really used to concern him. Yeah. And he would be upset about things like that.
Absolutely. And just speaking about, his legacy, I heard you in one interview, speaking about how you would encourage him and advise him and say, Dad, listen, you have mentored so many leaders. Allow the young to continue to find solutions to some of these, issues within the continent. Allow them to lead. But, also just in terms of then his legacy, what legacy do you think he leaves behind for those that he has mentored, for those that he has, had the honor of speaking to, and even the greater Africa that he has, the just privilege of having to lead this continent to where it is today?
Fortunately, going back to what you just said about telling him, look, Dad, leave it there, people you've trained to do these things. Fortunately, he listened to us whenever we reminded him about that.
Yeah.
But it was out of concern that he would try and see maybe there's something he could say or do to try and resolve a situation or advise on a situation. But fortunately, like I said, he listened when we told him, like, Dad, you've done your part.
Right.
Now, coming back to what you said about those who are there now, I think all they have to do is the way he worked. Look, he believed in what he stood for in terms of that his fellow human beings took precedence over everything else. And only to God did they come second. And in his later years, that is what he did in terms of blessing people when they came to see him. His words were always, when parting with people, always were, believe in your God and trust and do and behave with all your heart, all your mind, in all you do, and believe in God. And that is what he believed in towards the end of his years. So those who are there trying to emulate him, all they have to do is just put man and woman at the center of what they're doing. That's what comes first.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm sure as a family you've received so many, you know, condolences and messages of support from around the world. You have acknowledged that support as well. And you also mentioned that you were actually one of, you know, those who were around him, you know, as obviously one of his sons, but also one of his, you know, just close, you know, just advisors saying, Dad, it's time to relax. It's time to just take it easy now that you're in old age. I suppose my question to you, Mr. Kaunda, is what work now lies ahead for the Kaunda family to ensure that you keep his legacy moving forward? What do you have sort of, you know, in mind right now to ensure that the name of Dr. KK, which I'm sure would never leave anyone's, you know, lips or mind, but in terms of you owning his story as a family, what work then lies ahead for you?
I think we'll have to play it by ear, depending on how people would like to relate to him, because he did not do what he did so that he could be remembered. That was not why he did what he did. He did what he did because he believed that man was made to live in a particular way, free from any inhibitions from other human beings. So the way he's remembered will depend on those of us who are left behind. We as family, yes, will be custodians of some of his memories and some of his thinking, deep thinking, but the rest of the population that would like to know about him can then use us if time comes to find out certain things if there's some blanks. Although I think there's a lot out there that if people really wanted, they can find out about him. But on the more personal level, if they wanted some things, we're ready to assist those who might want those things.
And just briefly before I let you go, I know this might be a personal question, but one lesson from father to son, one piece of advice that he left you and gave you that you will never forget, what would it be?
God. Believe in God, no matter what the circumstances, and that God will let you do the right thing at the end of the day.
I appreciate your time. Of course, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda's son, Mr. Kaweche Kaunda, we appreciate you speaking to us this morning.